if there are shares, if there are shares, we can I always take the recording off so that if you do want to share where you are, how you are doing. Oh, it didn't do the live stream. Okay. I'm just going to redo that then. And wherever you are, we'll share with no expectation that that's going to be recorded either, if you want to, and you don't have to. So as I said, and just to repeat myself so that we can kind of get a sense of where I'm coming from and what I'm doing today, my background is I am working from the Western European kind of, actually Western and Eastern, kind of mixing a bit of the Slavic heritage, a bit of Ukrainian and kind of Slovak, mixing with the Celtic and the Druid heritage, mixing with Norse, and then also working with the history of ancient Iraq and the history of ancient Babylon. And as I'm sorry, I'm not doing shares anymore right now, but you'll be able to share at the end. Thank you so much. Thank you. So in this case, I'm pulling from those traditions in a way where what I'm really kind of looking for are, what are the old and indigenous ways of Babylon that have been lost? I specifically was trained in the Mayan tradition. My teacher is Mayan. My name was given to me through my basically apprenticeship with a Mayan kind of mystical worker, medicine woman. So I hold that deep in my heart. And a lot of the indigenous practice of the Mayan peoples and the indigenous people in North and South America are really kind of the core of what, we think of when we think of kind of this meditation work, this magical work. And that's really closest to like the roots, kind of the medicine people who lived on the land and were living in connection with the land. And Babylon's a little different because it's kind of the magic of like the first city people, the first farmers, and some of the first. It's very, very old. Of course, I don't pretend it's the first, but it is some of the first recordings of these kind of magical traditions. And for those who are curious, I will be doing a Babylonian magic intensive in July and August. So please keep an eye out for that. That is going to be specifically about all Babylonian magic, all the Babylonian deities, as well as specifically the practice of kind of exorcism for magic, for healing, for kind of energy work. So it's not intended to be in any way like a bother or something where, we are, out of harmony with the spirits around us, but it's actually supposed to be about integrating and bringing wellness and natural order into the self, because a lot of Babylonian work is actually about coming into accordance with the natural order. So the other thing that I'm going to be pulling from is, and so we're actually, what I'll say is we'll be pulling from that a bit today, because today's topic is actually fire and the alchemical element of fire. And so fire factors very, very heavily in Babylonian magic. I know there are some folks who were here for the Maklu magic workshop. And so I'm grateful to you for being here. And we did a whole amazing ceremony together, and we did a fire ceremony in the end, right? And so that work with the fire is at the heart of Babylonian magic. And to be honest, it's at the heart of alchemy as well. So last month, we discussed Mercury, which I think is basically one of the other base elements, but fire is in some ways just as important and central, if not, more important and central. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what fire means in this context. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to be using the fire. And then we're going to do a short meditation to, not so much a healing meditation today, but more of kind of a magically focusing meditation, focusing our intent, focusing kind of what we'd like to bring in alchemically with the element of fire for the rest of this month and into the next cycle before we meet again next month. So with that in mind, it's a great time to talk about fire. One of the things that is kind of amazing about alchemy in general is that it has connections to so many different philosophies, There's Chinese alchemy, there's Greek alchemy, there's Byzantine alchemy. Yes, and there is an Aries moon coming up, and we will actually be meeting for that next Thursday. I'm behind on my scheduling, as everyone's been hearing about, and I apologize, but I will be hopefully getting that on the calendar tonight for ahead of maybe a second newsletter sent tomorrow or the next day. So if you are interested in staying in touch, please do, as we will be meeting for the Aries new moon and really discussing the fire continuously in detail. But it's true that considering it is Aries season, and happy birthday to any Aries folks in the audience, or in the group, I should say. It's not really an audience, excuse me, more in the group, in the council that we're holding together. Happy birthday. But I felt fire was perfect, especially because it's Aries season and it's the Aries moon coming up. So yeah, what I was just also saying is that with alchemy, there are many roots to it. There's the Chinese alchemy, there's Greek alchemy, and then alchemy kind of has this relation to ancient Egypt, because ancient Egypt is Kemet. So alchemy sounds like, well, the Cometian magic. And in many ways, there's a lot of alchemical Egyptian texts, which we will eventually discuss as we move kind of further and further on this path. But one thing that's really interesting is that a lot of Egyptian alchemical texts actually also have roots in ancient Babylon. And so that conversation was always happening between those two civilizations. So, what I say comes from many people, many different kinds of wisdoms. And we'll be talking about each and every one in a little, we'll be talking just about this overview of what fire is, so that we can go into this meditation, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So, in Greek philosophy, there were the four classical elements, of which fire is one. The fifth can be ether or spirit, but the main four, of course, earth, water, and fire. Earth, water, fire, and air. Fire is one of these four. And it has qualities of energy, assertiveness, and passion. And there, many people believe that fire is a gift that was stolen from the gods in order to protect us humans who are helpless. Prometheus in ancient Greece, is this hero who's punished for giving us fire. But the name's not important. It's just this story, really, that once upon a time, the idea of fire being a part of our lives is that it was a gift that we harnessed. And there's a lot of philosophy, Greek philosophy, about what fire means, how it is a part of us. And there's one philosopher, his name is Heraclitus, but you can it's more important that you get the concept and the name. But the concept that he posited was that fire is actually the most fundamental of elements and best describes the operations of nature, because it kind of pulls everything apart, but in his mind, it brings things together again. It has this identification with God and God processes, and it's something that flows and flows, and it doesn't abide by anything. Everything has to give way to the fire. Nothing is fixed under the fire. And so it's not only a symbol for magic, but it's a symbol for our very reality. And I think that that's a very important thing to keep in mind, and is also a lot of ancient Greek philosophy is kind of just rewrapped Babylonian philosophy. The more I read, the more I realize. And so this is what the exorcists were saying too, is that the reason that the fire is at the heart of an exorcism is because fire is the ultimate natural order. Under fire, we are all taken from our matter, and we are all brought down to the same material, which is ash. So not even harmful spirits can run away from fire. Fire is at the heart of power. And if you wield it and you kind of become a fire user, you are basically not only a protector for your fellow human beings, but you are like a true magician because you're using the fire with your power and you're using it as your tool. And so if you have a wand or anything, this is a great way to, if you ever want to basically, use directional magic and direct your power towards one thing or another. And that in a way is fire too. But basically the true nature of fire is that every piece of matter is all destroyed in fire, and it creates only one substance. In a way, it's very death and rebirth, and we think of the phoenix, but it brings us down to our base elements, the ash, the mud, in a way, the earth that we came from. The alchemists recognized 4 grades of fire with which we can work. The grades are called elementary fire, secret fire, central fire, and celestial fire. So elementary fire is kind of what we think of as fire in our everyday lives, like the fire from the stove. It's really kind of just sort of the physical representation of it. But then we also have the secret fire, and the secret fire is basically it's the consciousness of fire and of the alchemist, the fire weaver. And it's really our ability to connect to our spiritual consciousness and to use it. Central fire is the fire of creation, the word of God in manifested objects, kind of like the creator's mark and everything. And so central fire is kind of like the soul in everything else. It's the fire that is within all of us. It's the spirit that you see. When you look at a tree, the tree might not have fire, but it has an inherent spirit that this is a creature or this is a being of the natural world and perhaps of the divine. I'm not here to tell you what to believe, but I might say it's a being of the divine. And so that's kind of that central, that inherent fire of all things. And then finally, we've got the celestial fire, which is the brilliance of, as the alchemist put it, the mind of God itself, which for those who came to my Ramadan circles and who might be interested in coming up again, because Ramadan is basically right after the Aries new moon, for the Sufis as well, that is the ultimate goal, is the connection of your consciousness and God consciousness. It's the ability not just to see your consciousness and see the consciousness of everything else, but it's to also meld and become one alchemically and with the consciousness of God, the gods, the deities, the universal life force. It's to tap in. And as you tap in, then the alchemy comes through you. So that is something important to think about as well. And we will be kind of meditating into a space where we'll be thinking about this, but we'll also be doing a little bit of kind of fire reading. And I'll explain that during the meditation, but that is also kind of looking at like first the body, the self, in the brown part of the flame, and then in the blue part is kind of the heart of everything, the heart of you, the heart of the fire. And then when you look at the red, that's kind of like the spirit consciousness of the fire. And so we'll be talking more about that, but that's just something to keep in the back of your mind, is like fire reading is also kind of looking at these 4 fire types. So the other things that I will say is that fire is considered rising energy. It's often the upward triangle. And it is something that rules over action and movement and force. And so for ceremonial magic, kind of like what we'll be doing today, it includes evocation and invocation. And it's really kind of like, it's the dynamic dynamicism even of our bodies. It really is the spirit that governs the body, and it's the growth, development, and evolution of our heart, our circulation, our, our thoughts, our just all our consciousness is in the fire, is in the spirit. And fire, of course, is also about rites of passage. And so it's really like we are fire, and we're constantly passing through the fire in order to like move on to our next steps. There are many cultures where you light a fire for birth, you light a fire and walk around it for your wedding, you're cremated at the end of your life, you begin with the fire and you end with the fire. It's really, it's a connective tissue to everything. And the only other thing that, of course, is important to remember is that, we think a lot of fire when we think of magic. Some might even call like the Inferno after Judgment Day or something, to be a part of kind of like the magic and the wisdom. Well, it's seen in a negative light. I don't think that it should be. Well, I think it's a complicated tale, but there's this idea that even when our life ends, to kind of the people of the book, we go into the fire, especially if we've done bad things. Now, I don't necessarily think that's relevant, but it's interesting that there's this idea that, fire is where we meet our ending a lot of times. And that's where it really relates back to this alchemy of Babylon as well, is the transformation of energy happens by putting it into the fire. And like literally you place it in and you watch it. And you watch it be destroyed, and sort of the witnessing of the fire destroying energy is how you are able to basically find your peace, your equilibrium. So I feel like that's a pretty good sense of fire for where we are. Oh, nice. Happy birthday, March 31st. That's wonderful. So if anyone has any questions, you can put it in the chat. I don't unmute when the recording's on, just because, as some of you may have seen I think it was on Sunday for the spring equinox. I mean, I know you guys wouldn't do that, but I just want to keep the rules fair because of, we just had another disruption as usual. So questions that can come in the chat. Otherwise, let's let the music start. And we will have a meditation, just one meditation that's really focused on kind of doing magic in a meditative space. If you do Reiki, this is a great time to use your Reiki hands, but you don't need to have Reiki in order to do the work. And should be amazing. Thank you all so much. All right. So wherever you are now, let's go ahead and get into a relaxed position. You may want to lay down, sit down, whatever feels comfortable. We're going to begin by feeling the natural cadence of our breath and tuning into this moment now in council amongst each other. And we are now going to do some breath work. So when I say 9, we'll breathe in, and when I say 9, we'll breathe out, and I'll coach you. And as we count to 9 together, we'll be inviting in the energy of ending all that has passed before this moment, so that we may come to and be fully arrived in the moment of now. Breathing in now, 9. And breathing out, 9. Breathing in, 9. Breathing out, 9. Nine, breathe in. Nine, breathe out. We'll do 2 more here. 9. Nine. With this final breath, let's really breathe in from the tips of our toes to the top of our foreheads. 9. And 9. We can let the breath return to normal. We are releasing now thoughts of the day, the people that we've come into contact with, troublesome connections. We can always return to them, but for now, we are tuning in just for ourselves, just for this moment, just to become in tune with our alchemy within. Relaxing the body, letting the earth come up to meet you. Really relaxing jaw, eyes, back of the neck, head space. Letting the mind come into a rest. Taking time to be conscious of our own spirit and fire. And as we are doing so, I will now invoke a prayer to begin our ceremony of alchemy on this day. Calling in to start your guides, those watching over you from the other side, your animal friends, any little people, fairies, elves, gnomes, leprechauns, menehune, any jinn who watch over you, or any star beings, calling in your deities, and calling in any ancestors, long way back ancestors who are in their wellness, who are not connected to present connections, who may not exist in living memory, but who nonetheless are here to support you on your journey. Now I call in my deities as well, my helping beings. I call in Mother Ishtar, Ishtar, Mother Venus, goddess of love, of passion, warrior, keeper of the lions and the owls, armored goddess. I call in Father Ninurta, warrior and protector of mankind, Abu Ninurta, keeper of the thunder and the lightning, keeper of Sharur, his mighty mace, slayer of the Anzu bird, and protector of the time and destiny tablets. I call in the great heroes Gilgamesh and Enkidu. I call in the great Mercury and all his faces, Hermes, the Thoth, Enki, Nabu, Odin, Hermes Trismegistus. I call in the Egyptian pantheon, Isis, Osiris, Sekhmet, Bastet, Horus, Amun-Ra. I call in the rest of the Babylonian pantheon, Marduk. I call in the pantheons of my ancestors, Merlin, Thor, Freya, Odin again, Tyr and Aries, Mars ruling over this Aries season, Shivaji, Shaktima, Kuan Yin, the great Buddha, powers of the four jaguar belongs, the leopards, the lions, the cats. And I offer my prayer now. I will use my own intentional prayer for this, as we are calling in everyone's deities. So I thank you for your understanding. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. subhanallah, 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 subhanallah. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم آمين. We praise all these beings whose thrones extend across the great heavens. In power and with humble gratitude, we welcome you. Thank you for our alchemical journey today. Let us now all feel ourselves placed in a grid amongst each other, but in our own space as well. You may see yourself in a pentagram or in a Solomonic, a seal, or Star of David, Star of Solomon, Sri Yantra, a symbol of power that begins to activate our energy grid. And we now moving into the realm of dream. If it's difficult for you to fly, simply allow this story to wash over you. Otherwise, allowing yourself now to move up and out of the room into the land of spirit, out of this dimension and into a place of a spiritual temple meant just for you. A place of our magic, of our alchemy. This may be a palace, it may be an ancient temple, it may be a hut, a healing hut, maybe a church or a synagogue. It may look like your childhood home if that feels comfortable to you. But this is your place to do your alchemy today. It may be perhaps even the place at the end of the double rainbow. And so go to your magical place. Where you may meet a guide or simply find yourself there, surrounded by your energy, your safety. And we now ask for our guides to help us gather firewood for our chemical needs, either already stacked within this temple or around and outside. We begin to carry brush and leaves and logs, so that we may build our own fire today in the spirit realm. Building and building, gathering and gathering. And when we feel that this fire is sufficient, or these buildings are sufficient, these logs, together, at the count of 3, or to the count of 3, our fires will alight as one. Counting now. 1, 2, 3. Noticing this fire's flame, the flame that is ours, that is our ceremonial flame, alchemical flame today. We see within this flame our own consciousness reflected. God consciousness burning in this flame. And the more we regard it, the more we feel the holographic nature of our consciousness rising, so that the fire is not just elementary, it is not just the secret fire of our own consciousness. It is not even a central fire, one specific fire of creation. It is the celestial fire, the mind of God itself, inviting us now to be mixed, and to come to new, uncovered alchemical wisdom, valuable information meant only for us as the veils lift in connection to the sacred celestial fire. We see now an image forming in this fire, a symbol of that which we want to create in our lives and alchemically transfer from this God fire consciousness into our continuously blending personal consciousness. This symbol represents our fire on this earth, and our desires being made reality through the magical element of force, of willpower, of courage, and of determination. After meditating on the meaning of this symbol, we now ready ourselves to step in so that when I count to 3 again, we will join this symbol, drinking it in, bringing in the magic to our bodies, and welcoming our alchemical power to change the forces of nature, while the rest is simply burned away. Counting now. 3, 2, and 1. We step in. There is no pain. There is only the heat as we take this symbol in and consume it. Our stomachs and our hands alighting with flame. Magic within, magic without. These last few minutes, we invite in a mantra of manifestation for the next cycle to come. My word is my will, and my will is my word. I speak and create my reality. And this becomes embedded within us as we continue to allow that which does not serve to burn away, and that which we wish to welcome to be ignited and sparked. My word is my will, and my will is my word. My word is my will, and my will is my word. I speak and I create my reality. My word is my will, and my will is my word. My word is my will, and my will is my word. My word is my will, and my will is my word. I speak and I create my reality. I speak and I create my reality. Abundance is with you. Abundance is with me. And as we are coming to the end of this circle and ceremony, I will give you another minute before counting down from 10. And by the time I get to 0, we will return back to this room and back to this space. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and 0. That is all for today's meditation. So thank you and have a good night to those who are on the Facebook Live. Have a blessed evening and take care. And I will now stop the recording here as well.